All right, it's time for Game 4 from Bobby Fischer's My 60 Memorable Games. The location has changed. We're no longer in Slovenia, but in Argentina, Mar del Plata. Bobby's opponent is Pilnik, an Argentinian. This is 1959 now. Well, we started in 1957. Bobby is now in 1959, 2 years older. He's about 16. Let's see how he does against the Argentinian grandmaster. Bobby is playing the black pieces. And the question for me is, will I be able to remember the moves from memory? Pilnik plays e4 and Bobby responds with the Sicilian c5. What will Bobby be playing? Well, we're going to find out. These are the expected moves. Knight to f6, forcing the knight onto c3 to defend the e4 pawn. Will Bobby play the dragon? No, Bobby hated the dragon. Bobby will play a6, of course, the Najdorf. Pilnik plays the Opasensky variation by putting his bishop onto e2. Bobby puts his pawn onto e5 and drives that knight to b3, and now is able to put his own bishop on e7. Both sides want to castle. Pilnik now brings the bishop onto e3, and Bobby, well, follows suit, putting his bishop onto e6. What does Pilnik do now? Well, he's going to put his pawn here onto f3. And Fischer plays queen to c7. Pilnik moves his queen to e1. He wants to put his rook onto the d file. And that's exactly what we're going to see right now. Now, Bobby begins the minority attack in the Najdorf. Now, if I had not been studying these games, I would not know much about the Najdorf. Well, I don't know much about it now, but I do understand now from this game that this minority attack is a significant aspect of the Najdorf. I didn't know that before. Now Pilnik plays the rook to d2. I don't know if he plans on doubling the rooks or if he is thinking about this b pawn being pushed to the fourth rank, harassing the knight perhaps, so he wants to defend the pawn. Bobby plays his knight to b6. Now, Pilnik should play bishop takes knight, but he doesn't. And Bobby notes that this is a significant error. However, Fischer does not take advantage of the error. He plays instead his rook to b8. If you put this position in a chess engine, the engine will tell you that black has an advantage here of about 2 pawns, actually a little bit over. Depends on the depth you go to. The best move here is to play knight to a4. Then the knight on c3 will take, the pawn will take, and then this knight here on b3 will be driven back to c1. Black will then be able to push his pawn up in the center, and his knight will come over, recapturing, and black will have a significant advantage. So if you ever get this position, be sure to play your knight to a4. Fischer doesn't do that, and his justification in his notes is that while he knows that white should have immediately taken the knight off instead of playing the queen to f2, and that he has an advantage, that the knight really should go to either c4 or a4, he wanted to put more into the position. And so he plays his rook to b1. It's a mistake. Now, black still has an advantage of about a pawn in this position, but it's nothing quite like what it was. And he says, as Pilnik takes the knight off with the bishop now, he says, well, I didn't think he would do it. If he didn't take the knight the first time, I didn't think he would do it. So I thought I would, be able to put my rook on b1 and then even make something more out of the position. All right, Bobby recaptures that bishop with the rook. Now what? Well, you notice this configuration. Pilnik, I think, wants to take advantage of it, so he puts his knight onto the d5 square. And Bobby plays knight takes knight. The engines will tell you that bishop takes knight might be better. But there it is. Now Pilnik pushes the pawn. This is the correct move. And now finally, he takes on e5. The bishop takes. The knight is now ready to come on to d4. It really wants to head here to the c6 square. Bobby wants to protect this square, plays g6. Bobby now continues the minority attack. And here with this move, king to h1, not a horrible move, but Fischer says that Pilnik loses the thread a little bit. And now the knight will come onto the c6 square. Bobby takes with the pawn. Pilnik now takes the queens off the board and has an outside passed pawn on the a file. The rook comes over to a8, defending the file. Fischer says about this move that Pilnik plays, knight takes the bishop on e5, says that it's an error. The engines say, no, it is in fact the top move, or certainly among the top moves. Now Pilnik plays the rook to c3. The better move would have been to have played the bishop immediately down to c7. When Pilnik finally does this, Bobby comments that this is an act of desperation. No, it's actually a good move. The position favors black, but not by much. Bobby saves his bishop. Here is where Pilnik throws the game away. And Bobby says this is some wild act on the part of Pilnik. The chess engines will agree. The bishop gives check. Bishop interposes, and now the bishop moves to d3. It would be better if Pilnik had moved the rook immediately, but he pushes the pawn to d6. This is not a good move, actually. The rook comes over. Here, Fischer comments that Najdorf chided him for missing the move e4. e4 is an interesting move because ultimately, if you work out the variations, the rook will be able to come down to the b file, and Fischer will win both the bishop and the rook. I can't show you the variation because this doesn't allow me to do that, but you can work them out on your own. In any event, Najdorf does chide Bobby, and it gives a nice personal element to the account. Now the rook comes over, threatening the bishop. And Bobby has a little trick. That rook is pinned. Let's pin it and win it. Pilnik cannot get a draw because this pawn here is not on g5. Well, I hope you got something out of that, and I hope you enjoyed it. Give it a thumbs up if you liked it, and go ahead and subscribe. We'll see you later.